Barbie and Oppenheimer this past weekend. What a weekend of movies! Like,
You're killing me, Smalls. We're not talking about Barbenheimer. We're talking about Sandlot.
I'm I'm out of here.
Welcome back to This is 30. And today we're talking about a movie that I think 90% of the world has seen in their childhood. And that movie is Sandlot.
One
So
of my favorite movies.
this movie came out back in 93, right?
Mhm.
And it had a budget of only $7 million. And guess what?
Wow.
Financially, it did only $35 million.
Holy crap.
Hey! Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
success.
Look, this movie is like watching it as a kid, you were like, "Ooh, I always wanted to have, friends like this or do these things and whatnot." Watching it as an adult, it pulls on your heartstrings. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, like, this is great. This is wholesome. This movie is something that you sit down as a whole family, as a collective, and you watch it. Sort of like how you watch A Christmas Story during Christmas time. This movie, you should watch this movie during Memorial Day with your family because it would skyrocket you and have a great summer beginning.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I watch this. I mean, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. But like every time I watch this movie, like it brings me right back to like when I was that age, like playing
Yep.
outside with friends, not having to go home until the lights come on, the sun's starting to go down. You know, your parents, your mom's calling you back inside, things like that. Hanging out, but like on the block, playing baseball, playing basketball, whatever. Getting hot, getting sweaty. You know, riding your bike, falling down, getting a scrape underneath, things like all those like little things about being like a kid that age, like hanging out with your friends. This movie encapsulates it so well that it just every time I watch it, it just brings me right back to like the 90s when I was a kid like that, and
the ball going
miss those days.
the ball going into the neighbor's yard, questioning whether you could get it or not. Um, Running to the store or the 99-cent store to buy more balls. The part where you don't that meme rings true. Is this the last time you're gonna play outside with your friends? That gets me every time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And this movie takes place when in like the 60s, I think.
1962.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like even though like it's a 60s movie, like it's a movie themed around the 60s, like it just feels like so 90s. I mean, just because like obviously it was made during the 90s, but like it still has like that like like community playing outside with your friends feel that like we used to have all the time back when we were kids in the 90s.
So
it's
that's
like
because the
times
90s
never
was the
changed.
last decade that did that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Nobody in the 2000s did that anymore. The 90s was the last thing. That's why it's so unforgettable to see this and experience it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, like that was when the digital age hit. Now everybody's just on their like kids are on their iPads and playing Fortnite online and all that. Different
it's funny
times.
that you mentioned that, Johnny, because growing up, like I always wanted like that kind of like spot, that kind of area to just like go chill out and everything. I just had the street growing up and playing in, but I wish I had like an empty baseball field to myself just to like do whatever we wanted to do. I always wanted that kind of hangout, that kind of tree house, stuff like that. And this was like a way to like live vicariously through that. Also, Pancakes can attest to this because Pancakes and I go back a long, long time. This is the movie that specifically got me wearing, for the longest time, PF Flyers.
Really?
Swear to God, yes.
No way.
I got these shoes, and people are like, "Oh, they're just black Converse." I'm like, "Actually, they're PF Flyers. Excuse you. It'll make me run faster and jump higher than any kid before."
I see that so much on you.
Can I?
I am
so
not
we're
surprised.
Grimmy the Jet.
Grimmy the Jet.
So
yeah, no.
So a couple of questions, right?
Okay.
Do we think that this movie has, stood the test of time, that it can it should be shown to other kids for them
Not
to
only
understand what life was before there was electronics.
Spade. Not only has this movie withstood the test of time, it is timeless. Like
Aha.
this movie will never lose its appeal. This movie will never lose like the reasons why you watch it now. Like I said, like that big feeling of nostalgia that like washes over you every single time you watch it. Like I will absolutely, like way down the road when I have a kid or two, whatever, like, I would show my kids this movie and make them watch it just to show them, this is how we used to play. This is how kids normally played back in the day, just so you know. And, just like get them to like, it's a good movie about like, like friendship and camaraderie, all that stuff, like a bunch of, guys being friends, like, being kids and, poking fun at each other. Like, like all those like little things. Like it just makes it all so enjoyable that even like years from now, I will watch it and feel the same exact way I do now.
And I will say, essentially, people have been known to say that Batman the Animated Series is the ultimate nostalgic TV show. I will say The Sandlot is the ultimate nostalgic movie, at least for our generation anyway. Like, This puts you back in a headspace that you were just like, at least for us, I want to say, makes us kids again. And honestly, there were a couple points of this. I was still laughing my ass off while watching this as an adult.
It is a funny movie. It's a comedy.
There's so many scenes.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about that actually. What are your personal favorite scenes?
Hang on, Pancakes. What do you think about this?
What favorite scenes?
No, so it stands the test of time.
It's timeless. It stands a test of time for sure. Certain scenes I'm not sure they could get away with today if that was made in this time period.
I know what to talk about.
Yeah, but leave it to that one kid that did that. We all had that one need in our life when we were younger that wish we could do the unattainable, and he acted out like that fantasy. Do what we got to do to get the girl. But again, that's something. That's another conversation.
Oh, that was a highlight scene of the movie. That was one of the highlights. That was just hysterical. But
the great thing. The great thing to run up like in the epilogue where he actually gets the girl, he marries her and has 9 kids. I think the spoiler restrictions expired more than 30 years ago by now, as far as that goes.
It's fine, Pancakes. Don't worry about it. But mine. My favorite scene is literally in the beginning of the movie when he goes out with his stepfather and they're about to play ball for the first time, and he just gets a black eye, and I can't stop laughing every time I see that. It's just, to me, I'm sorry if that ever happened to you where you played ball with your father for the first time and you got a black eye. I'm going to laugh. It was hysterical. So yeah,
I totally forgot that Dennis Leary was the stepdad or in that other role. He's so well known to be this comedian and adult raunchy roles, and to be in a family friendly movie where he's contained. Where that was interesting, and to see Marion Ravenwood leave Dr. Jones to be with Dennis Leary in this movie.
That was her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my god! I didn't recognize that.
No, the mother was Karen Allen.
Yeah, that's Marion Raven.
Oh, yeah,
That's Marion from Indiana Jones.
Yeah, you're right. Oh wow. Yeah, I never caught that. Interesting.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys: were you guys as excited to find out that the old man who lives next door to the Sandlot was James Earl Jones?
Was Darth Vader? You're damn right I was.
So the first time I saw this, like one of the first few times I watched this movie, it was like before I was young enough to like not know really who James Earl Jones was, not even like recognizing him from like Lion King, and I was like, oh, okay, he's like an old man. Oh, cool, he knows Babe Ruth. And I was like, but like now I watch it, I'm like, wow, what a cameo! Like that's great. Yeah.
Is this his most famous role after Darth Vader, after Mufasa?
No.
Or his role? or where he put his role as the king in Coming to America ahead of that.
Definitely
King of Coming to
Yes.
America, way ahead of that. The King of Zamunda.
Yeah,
The
because
King of Zamunda.
in hindsight, like it's a big role, but it's a small part. You know, the kids take center stage with their activities. One scene I kind of had to look away because I forgot how disgusting it was when the chewing tobacco and they decide to go on the ride and their pupils popped out.
Oh,
I mean, it's funny. It's funny as
Oh, that
hell,
was great.
but that was an example of kids doing dumb things and like, oh, I say this for a special occasion, and then it backfires in their face.
You know what's
You know-
funny
you know
about
what?
that scene though? Like right afterwards, if you heard the if you paid attention to the voiceover, he goes, "Yeah, and we cut that quick." Something to that extent. Like they made it sound like they were like doing hard drugs or something.
Oh yeah,
And,
Yeah.
they
and
were
they were
like,
quitting, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not doing that stuff
the
anymore."
last
No,
night
guys.
we ever
Yeah.
did that, and from then on we just stuck to Bazooka, and I'm like, oh, great.
You
It
know
was
what's
also
funny?
the
So,
I used to watch that scene as a kid, and then like I would just I remember like watching it and just thinking like, oh, those look like big Tootsie Rolls. So I would just like used to like take like one of like the big chunky Tootsie Rolls and just like put it
Yeah.
inside of my mouth like tobacco and just chew it, thinking I was like chewing the real thing. But,
and it was also
yeah.
the '60s, so they could get away with more stuff back then, and they had less supervision.
it's funny that you mentioned it, though, Spade, because I felt like with this movie, yes, like movies have progressed from then on, but I feel like a lost art is narration in the movies because
Yes.
sometimes it's like, oh, we have an opening monologue, we have an ending monologue, and I feel like narration in this movie did it perfectly from the get-go. Also, it really did lead up to the plot of the movie because like at least it's mentioned 3 times, and this is how I got into the biggest pickle of my life. And I'm like, we all know it, but I'm watching this again and I'm like, oh man, they're really hyping this up. I want to know what this pickle is. I really want to know what this happening is.
You know, it's like if you think of the movie Ant-Man Quantumania, perfect example of what you're talking about and how
Oh,
they did it wrong, how it's not
Yeah.
done right. You know, that there was no substance to it. So I
Yeah,
definitely
that one
get
was
what you're talking
dry.
about. Yeah, yeah.
Well, this movie had plenty of substance, and they also puked it out as they were on the ride as well.
Oh god. Oh, clearly that's your favorite
That-
scene then.
No, that joke sounded better in my head. Anyway,
Okay, so let's go to the bad part about this video. Are you ready?
Oh no.
Is there
Is there a
anything
bad
that you
part?
hated about this movie?
Yes. Yes, there is.
Go ahead.
So the movie has changed from when we first saw it to how it is now. Now, I think there are like 2 or 3 different cuts of the movies, but I think they're sticking to like the one right now, which I think
Is there?
it does suffer from because I know for a fact the cinematography specifically from this is just out of whack. Like in the treehouse scene, for example, right? You see Smalls come in, he sits down, gives a whole thing about his dishes and everything, but the camera is still hard focusing on him and Porter when other kids are like talking and screaming in the background and they're doing nothing. And it looks like someone gave Porter like a cue to say like, hey, do you want a s'more? Like it was not natural at all. And it happened another time in this movie too. I forget when, but yeah, the cinematography in this I just feel like is like not as good as it could have been, or they changed cuts.
I never noticed that. I didn't know
Yeah.
they had different cuts.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I didn't know either.
I know for a fact because like when I was younger and I saw this movie, it felt a lot more natural, and then I think like they changed it, and for whatever god awful reason they did, and this is what I got. But go back, rewatch it, let me know if I'm right or wrong.
I
Also
would
put in the
say-
comments.
I would say the only thing that ever like bothered me about this movie is the effects used to visualize the dog. Why am I blanking on his name?
Yeah.
Because like
Hercules.
in the Hercules,
Hercules.
yeah, the because in the first few scenes when they're building up the tension, like like teasing that there is a monster hiding behind this fence, they very clearly use like an animatronic gigantic dog looking thing like to
Yeah.
kind of like eat the. And then during the the climactic chase scene, it's just a regular dog. It's just like a regular
No,
like
well-
sized dog. And I'm sure you still look ferocious and everything, but like the animatronic was much bigger
Now-
looking than the real dog that we got during the chase scene. So that always bothered me.
To be fair, that whole entire scene was a reenactment of, again, the treehouse scene and telling a story of this monster dog that ate entire sides of
No.
beef and everything. So it has to look like a
they were-
monster.
No, but
And
there
that's
was
how
like,
monsters looked back then. They looked cheesy as hell.
no, but there was like a scene or two even before that scene that you're talking about that like you see like the silhouette of the dog behind the fence. And it's
Yeah.
like very clearly like the dog, like, and there was the scene when they were using that machine to get the ball back up, and then right before they were able to get it, you see the dog jump up.
Again,
And
that is after that, though. Again, that is after the telling of that, the reenactment of a 10-year-old child about
Yeah,
a monster dog on the other side of the fence. Of course, it's going to look like that, and
I
then
guess.
you physically see it, and you're like, oh, it's just a really big dog.
To your point, I was actually gonna say, like, we're seeing the movie from the perspective of kids, so everything looks bigger. Storytelling's gonna be even more over dramatic, so that's why they were flipping out on it when they said, oh, they were flipping like, oh, you could have just they could have just ring the doorbell, and they would have gotten they would have gotten the ball back, you know.
Yeah.
So
You're not wrong. I just always saw it as like, oh, like this is like the version of the dog that they're using for like action scenes that they can't get the dog to do itself, like, you know, jumping up over a fence or whatever like that. But that makes a lot of sense though.
And then go back to Spade's numbers. It was a low budget, $7 million movie, so certain things are going to look cheesy.
Yes.
Well, hang on. $7 million back in '93 is a lot of money too. So bear that in mind.
Yeah. So look, let's be real. There's no CGI in this movie.
Yep.
There's no big name. For back then, there was no real big name.
Besides James Earl Jones
in that movie.
James Earl Jones.
He was a cameo.
How much did they pay him? $100K? Like, it's insignificant. Like, he was in the movie for literally like 3 or 4 minutes screen time total. Mm-hmm. But the point is that this movie, I feel like when they were filming this movie, I bet you those kids had so much damn fun. Because you could see it in their acting, like the way they were bouncing off of each other with the jokes, with the skits and everything that was going on. You knew for a fact, like, those kids had the time of their life back in like probably 91 or 92, probably 1990, 91 when they were filming this movie. So I feel like they really enjoyed themselves. And I'm sure today they're probably looking back saying, we had some great times back then.
And as far as in the conversation of what's the greatest sports movie of all time, this movie is definitely in the conversation top 10, top 5. It's definitely near the top.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you with that. Wholeheartedly, actually.
No, guys.
Absolutely.
This isn't a sports movie. It has to do with the everyday life of a 10-year-old.
I see what you're saying.
It wasn't about the game. There was barely any games.
There was plenty of game. There was plenty of game.
Well,
baseball is the essential plot device in the movie. They're talking about Babe Ruth. They have a guy playing Babe Ruth in a dream sequence with Benny the Jet. When they talk to the neighbor, you see all the baseball autograph and memorabilia. This is very much a sports movie, and their Sandlot is a baseball field.
As long as Space Jam exists, you're wrong. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
You want to talk about the best sports movie of the 90s? We're going Space Jam.
Hang on. Because the Replacements would like to have a word with this as well. As one of the greatest sports movies.
The Mighty Ducks would like to have a word with you too. So
not so much the Ducks. I don't know. Maybe part 2, but part 1 was.
Honorable mention to Rookie of the Year. Honorable mention to Rookie of the Year. Anyway.
Angels in the Outfield.
That too. Baseball movies had a good run in the 90s, I must say.
Yeah,
they really did.
Sandlot, Angels.
But think about it. Why did they have that? because people were actually outside playing games. They were outside in the fields.
No,
They
no, no,
were
but
outside-
like baseball specifically though, because the only thing that we really had for like a basketball movie was Space Jam. That's about
right,
it.
and then
The
you had a
only-
whole bunch of football movies.
Yeah, we didn't get another good like basketball movie until Like Mike, and that was like the early 2000s, I think.
Oh god, yeah.
You say
Even
like
then,
Mike?
that was
Yeah.
debatable.
Yeah,
Very
Give me-
debatable.
Give me another name in between that movie and Space Jam, another basketball movie. Anyway, I don't
Why
want to go
even
too off
mention
topic.
it though?
Joanna Man.
Joanna, man.
I mean, wait, no, never
we
mind.
had white man can't jump. Space
I was
Jam,
just about to
Like
say
Mike.
that too.
Which
Official timeline.
we'll post the link down low.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we reviewed the new version of that movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
But anyway, we're
Spoiler
going too off
alert.
topic.
not so good. Anyway, so guys, any closing thoughts on this argument we are having about the Sandlot?
Debate.
I was about to say, I don't even know if it is a debate or not, because I think majority of us, yeah, like 4 of us would.
You're
This
killing
is a
me,
great
Smalls.
movie.
You're killing me. It was supposed to be sarcasm.
Well, guess what? You ruined it by trying to out me, and now I'm outing you. Again, the 4 of us agree, stood the test of time, will show it to kids. Absolutely.
100%.
Certified
Johnny's
90s fresh. Yeah,
And I think you should watch it at least once a year. Again,
Yes.
Yeah.
during Memorial Day weekend. Pick a day.
Like how
Doesn't
you-
matter. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Like how you watch
doesn't matter.
Christmas movies every Christmas season, watch this movie every summer season. It's it's that type of tradition.
Oh, I agree,
I
100%.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
think we're gonna start this trend.
Oh yeah.
Hashtag Sandlot during Memorial Day weekend.
There you
Make
go.
it happen, internet. Make it happen.
Oh, please, yes.
And on that note, do that like, subscribe, click that bell, do all that fancy stuff. And with that, we are out.
Roll
Roll
credits.
credits.
Roll
Yes.
credits.